someone would take her to chemo. That was what the hospital security guard said later, when Evelyn Hart arrived, soaked to the bone, wrapped in an Uber driver's jacket, trembling so badly she could barely hold her own medical bag. But that was not the whole truth. The whole truth began at 8:17 on a Wednesday morning, when rain fell over Cleveland like the sky had finally broken open. Evelyn Hart stood beneath the cracked awning of a closed pharmacy on Euclid Avenue. She was 72 years old, with a pale blue scarf tied over the thin silver hair that had grown back after her first round of treatment. Her lavender cardigan clung wetly to her arms. Her shoes were soaked through. In one hand, she held a clear plastic bag filled with blood work results, crackers, a water bottle, and the small knitted blanket her late husband Samuel had once bought for her first infusion. In the other hand, she held her phone. The Uber app kept spinning, searching for driver, searching. Her chemotherapy appointment was at 9 a.m. It was now 8:31. The first driver had accepted, then canceled. The second driver had messaged, too much traffic, sorry, then canceled. The third had actually pulled near the curb. Evelyn had stepped forward with one trembling hand raised. Through the rain-streaked window, she saw the driver look at her scarf, her medical bag, her soaked clothes, her fragile body. For 1 second, their eyes met, then he drove away. Driver canceled. Evelyn stared at the notification. She did not cry. Crying required energy, and she needed all the energy she had left simply to stand. 6 months earlier, a doctor had told her the word malignant in a room that smelled of lemon wipes and fear. Stage 3 ovarian cancer. Since then, life had become a calendar of treatments, scans, side effects, and small acts of endurance. Every other Wednesday, rain or shine, she went to chemo. But today the city seemed determined to keep her from reaching the chair that might help keep her alive. Across the street, in a gray Toyota Camry parked beside a gas station, Marcus Reed saw the ride request appear. Evelyn H. Pickup, Euclid Avenue Pharmacy. Drop-off, Cleveland Hope Cancer Center. Estimated fare $12. Marcus was 39. With tired eyes, a close-trimmed beard, and a life measured in gasoline, rent, groceries, and his 8-year-old son Caleb's asthma medicine. He drove Uber 6 days a week, sometimes 7. Before that, he had driven medical transport until he lost the job for waiting too long with an elderly dialysis patient whose daughter had not arrived. The company had called it a scheduling violation. Marcus had called it not leaving a man alone. Now, through the rain, he saw Evelyn under the broken awning. Something tightened in his chest. His mother, Diane Reed, had died of cancer 9 years earlier after missing 2 oncology appointments in 1 month because transportation failed her. The van never came once. The next time, the driver refused to wait while she struggled down the apartment stairs. Marcus still kept her red chemo hat in a box at the top of his closet. The app buzzed. Accept ride? He accepted. 2 minutes later, he pulled to the curb. Water had gathered between the street and sidewalk, deep enough to cover Evelyn's shoes. She looked at his car with the guarded expression of someone who had already been abandoned too many times that morning. Marcus put the car in park. The app timer began. Waiting time started. A warning flashed. Excessive wait time may affect driver performance. Marcus looked at the warning, then at Evelyn, then at the rain. He turned off new ride requests, stepped out, and took off his charcoal jacket. Rain struck his hoodie instantly, soaking through the fabric, but he crossed the flooded curb and held the jacket over Evelyn's shoulders. "Mrs. Hart," he asked. She looked up. "Are you going to cancel?" The question was small, tired, and ready for disappointment. Marcus shook his head. "No, Mom, I'm not going anywhere without you." Her lips trembled. "I'm wet. I don't want to ruin your seats." For a moment, Marcus could not speak. Some sentences revealed how often a person had been made to feel like a burden. He opened the back door. "Seats dry," he said softly. "People don't." Evelyn turned her face away, but not before he saw tears mix with the rain. He helped her into the car slowly, one careful step at a time. She apologized for being slow, for being wet, for needing help. Marcus answered each apology with silence gentle enough to hold her dignity. When he got behind the wheel, the app showed arrival time. 9:03. Too late, maybe. Evelyn saw his hand move toward the phone. "Did you cancel?" she whispered. Marcus ended the trip before it began. Then he put the car in drive. "No, Mom," he said. "I turned off the meter." "Why?" He looked at her in the rearview mirror. Because his mother had waited for a ride that never came. Because an app could count miles, but not mercy. Because a woman in the rain should not have to prove she was worth stopping for. But he said only, "Because this isn't a ride anymore." The wipers swept hard across the windshield. Cleveland Hope Cancer Center waited somewhere beyond the storm. And Marcus Reed drove into the rain, not knowing that the choice he had just made would cost him his account, his income, and nearly everything he had left. Asterisk because at the cancer center, someone was already preparing to close the door. At 8:55 a.m., Cleveland Hope Cancer Center was already full of people trying not to look afraid. The infusion lobby smelled of coffee, disinfectant, and wet coats. A man in a wheelchair slept under a gray blanket. A woman in a knitted pink hat filled out insurance forms with shaking hands. Behind the front desk, Nurse Patricia Coleman watched the schedule on her screen with a tightness in her chest she had learned not to show. Evelyn Hart, A.M., Cycle 4 chemotherapy. Not checked in, Patricia had been a nurse for 26 years. She understood rules, she understood medication windows, pharmacy timing, and overcrowded infusion chairs. But she also understood something the printed policy did not. Late patients were not always careless. Sometimes they were poor. Sometimes they were sick. Sometimes the world between their front door and the hospital was full of locked gates no one else could see. At 8:58, the receptionist beside her whispered, "Should I mark her late?" Patricia looked at the rain beating against the glass entrance. "Give her 5 more minutes. The pharmacy window. I know the pharmacy window." At the same moment, Marcus Reed's Camry cut through traffic 3 miles away. The wipers slapped hard across the windshield. Water burst under the tires. Evelyn sat in the back seat wrapped in his charcoal jacket, both hands gripping her medical bag. "What time is it?" she asked. Marcus glanced at the dashboard. 8:59, we're closed. I'm so sorry, you don't need to apologize. I do, you're soaked, your car is wet. And now you're late for other rides. Marcus kept his eyes on the road. My mother used to apologize like that, he said. Evelyn looked up. She had cancer too? Yes. What was her name, Diane? Evelyn was quiet for a moment, then she said, I'm sorry, Marcus. He did not ask how she knew grief still hurt after 9 years. People who had lost someone recognized the wound without needing to touch it. My husband Samuel drove buses, Evelyn said softly. He used to say the world had enough people rushing past each other. Somebody ought to slow down. Marcus glanced at her in the mirror. Sounds like a good man. He was. At 9:04, Patricia stood from the infusion desk. Call pharmacy, the receptionist said carefully. Patricia stared at Evelyn's name on the screen. Not yet, she thought. Then the automatic doors opened. Rain entered first, then Marcus. He came in with one arm supporting Evelyn and the other holding her plastic medical bag against his chest to keep it dry. His hoodie was soaked. Water ran from his sleeves onto the polished floor. Evelyn's face was pale, but she was standing. I'm sorry, Evelyn said immediately. The rides kept canceling. I tried to. Patricia hurried toward her. Mrs. Hart. You made it. I'm late. You made it. Those 3 words nearly broke something inside Evelyn. Marcus helped her into a chair. She tried to remove his jacket, but he shook his head. Keep it on. You're still cold, but you're drenched. I'll dry. Patricia looked at him, really looked. She had seen many drivers at the cancer center. Some were kind, some were impatient. Some watched the clock like compassion was costing them money. This man looked like the cost had already arrived, and he had accepted it. You brought her? Patricia asked. Yes, Mom. She almost missed treatment. I know. Patricia wrapped a heated blanket around Evelyn's shoulders. A few people in the lobby had gone quiet. Not because anything dramatic had happened, but because everyone understood the kind of mercy that usually passed through the world unseen. Evelyn gripped Marcus's sleeve. Don't leave yet, she whispered. His phone buzzed in his pocket, missed ride opportunity. Then another buzz. Account notice, unusual cancellation activity detected. Marcus did not take it out. I'll be here, he said. At 9:13, Patricia returned. The pharmacy held your medication, she told Evelyn. We can still treat you today. Evelyn closed her eyes. Relief did not look like happiness. It looked like survival. As Patricia began wheeling her toward the infusion room, Evelyn turned back. Marcus stood in the lobby, soaked and shivering slightly now that the rush had passed. Will you be here when I'm done? The sensible answer was no. He needed money. He needed rides. His son Caleb needed medicine. Rent was waiting. The app in his pocket had already begun judging him. But Evelyn was looking at him as if his answer mattered more than he understood. Marcus nodded. I'll be here. Inside the infusion room, Evelyn settled into a recliner near the window. The first medicine began dripping into her vein with terrifying quietness. She kept Marcus's jacket over her lap, one hand resting on the torn cuff. Outside in the lobby, Marcus finally looked at his phone, account under review. Please contact support. He stared at the words for a long moment. The app knew he had canceled a ride. It knew his car had still traveled to the cancer center. It knew enough to punish him, but it did not know Evelyn's name. It did not know the rain. It did not know the way she had asked if he would leave too. Marcus sat down with wet shoes and cold hands. In the infusion room, Evelyn reached into her medical bag and pulled out a small floral notebook. With trembling fingers, she wrote one name, Marcus Reed. Then beneath it, Uber driver, turned off app. Got me to chemo and storm. She paused, listening to the IV pump, the rain, and the fragile rhythm of her own breath. Then she added one more sentence, do not let this disappear. Because while chemotherapy entered Evelyn's body, another kind of fight was beginning just outside the door. Marcus Reed waited in the cancer center lobby with wet shoes, cold hands, and an unopened peppermint candy in his palm. Nurse Patricia had given it to him from the front desk candy bowl, but he had not eaten it. He simply held it, turning it once in a while between his fingers, as if sweetness were something he needed permission to accept. Outside, the rain kept striking the glass doors. People entered with umbrellas, damp coats, and frightened eyes. The lobby remained busy, but Marcus felt strangely separate from it, like a man sitting on the edge of his own life while something unseen decided whether to push him off. His phone buzzed again. Account under review, possible violation, improper trip cancellation, and off-platform transportation. He read the words 3 times. Off-platform transportation, that was what they called it. Not getting a 72-year-old cancer patient to chemotherapy. Not helping a woman through a flooded curb, not refusing to leave someone in the rain, off-platform transportation. Marcus closed the screen and looked toward the infusion room doors. Behind those doors, Evelyn Hart was receiving the medicine she had nearly missed. That was the only fact he could hold without feeling sick. A nurse passed and glanced at his soaked hoodie. You should get dry, she said. I'm okay. You don't look okay, he almost smiled. That makes 2 of us. She gave him a paper cup of coffee anyway. The warmth reached his fingers before it reached anything else. At 10:14, his sister Angela texted him. Caleb forgot his inhaler again. I'm taking it to school, but Marcus, I can't keep leaving work like this. Marcus stared at the message. Caleb was 8. Bright, stubborn, thin as a reed, with asthma that always worsened when the weather turned cold. Marcus shared custody with Caleb's mother, but most emergencies fell where emergencies usually fell, on whoever answered the phone. He typed back, I'm sorry, app problem. I'll call soon. Angela replied, app problem? Marcus did not answer. How could he explain that one good choice had become a financial threat before lunch? He called driver support at 10:27. The hold music played for 22 minutes. When someone finally answered, the woman's voice was polite and tired. Thank you for calling driver support. May I have your name and email? Marcus gave both, typing silence. Then, your account is under temporary review for a potential safety and policy violation. I brought a patient to chemotherapy. You canceled the trip before completion. She was standing in a storm. I understand your concern. Marcus closed his eyes. That phrase had a special cruelties. It sounded human while refusing to become human. She was going to miss treatment, he said carefully. Our system shows the trip was canceled by the driver, but GPS indicates the vehicle continued to the destination. Yes, because she still needed to get there. That may be considered off-platform transportation. I didn't take cash. I didn't ask for anything. I understand. The review team will evaluate the incident. Your ability to accept trips may be paused for 24 to 72 hours. I need to work today. I understand your concern. My son needs medication. This time, the silence on the line changed. For one brief second, Marcus heard a real person behind the script. I'm sorry, she said. Then the call ended. Sorry did not turn the app back on. Sorry did not buy inhalers. Sorry did not pay rent. Marcus lowered the phone and sat very still. Inside the infusion room, Evelyn lay beneath 2 heated blankets with Marcus's jacket over her lap. The clear medicine dripped into her vein without hurry, as if illness and healing both had more patience than human beings. Patricia came to check the line. How are you feeling? Like a wet newspaper. That's better than frozen newspaper. Evelyn tried to smile. Then she looked toward the doors. Is Marcus still out there? Yes. Did something happen to him? Patricia did not lie. Nurses could offer comfort without decorating the truth. His account was flagged. Evelyn closed her eyes. The guilt entered quietly. It was not dramatic. It simply sat down beside her. He shouldn't be punished for helping me. No, Patricia said. He shouldn't. Evelyn reached for her floral notebook. Her hand shook as she opened it. Under Marcus's name, she wrote, account under review because of me. Then she crossed out the last 3 words, not because of me. Because the system punished what it could not measure. She stared at that sentence until it blurred. When treatment ended at 1:36 p.m., Patricia wheeled Evelyn back into the lobby. Marcus stood immediately, though he looked more tired than before. Evelyn saw his face. They suspended you, she said. Temporary review, he replied. For how long? Maybe a few days, and during those days, He looked away. That was answer enough. Evelyn began removing his jacket. "Take this back," Marcus shook his head. "It's still cold outside. You need it too. I'll manage." Evelyn studied him. People who said "I'll manage" that softly usually meant they had been managing alone for too long. She reached into her medical bag, pulled out the floral notebook, and held out a pen. "Write your number here, Mrs. Hart." "Evelyn," she corrected. He hesitated. So he did. Evelyn closed the notebook and placed one thin hand over it. "I don't know what I can do yet," she said. "But I know what I won't do." "What's that?" "I won't let a good man disappear behind a bad policy." Marcus had no answer. Outside, the rain had softened, but the city still looked gray and unforgiving. And as the hospital transport van arrived to take Evelyn home, she looked at Marcus one last time and made a promise neither of them fully understood yet. She would find out how many people had been left waiting before her. Because when Evelyn opened Samuel's old desk that evening, she would discover this story had begun long before the rain. Evelyn Hart returned home at 3:18 p.m., still wearing Marcus Reed's charcoal jacket. The rain had slowed to a mist, but the city looked bruised and washed out. The hospital transport van stopped in front of her small brick house on Ashbury Lane. The driver helped her to the porch, and Evelyn thanked him twice because gratitude was one of the few things sickness had not taken from her. Inside, the house was quiet. That was always the hardest part after chemo, the quiet. No Samuel calling from the kitchen, "How'd you do, Evie?" No strong hand reaching for her medical bag. No tea made too dark because he always forgot she liked it weak. 4 years after his passing, Evelyn still expected him in small places. The hallway, the porch, swing, the chair by the window. She hung Marcus's jacket over the back of a kitchen chair. It was still damp at the cuffs. A torn seam near the sleeve reminded her how little the man had and how quickly he had given it away. On the table sat her floral notebook. Marcus Reed, Uber driver, turned off app. Got me to chemo in storm, account under review, do not let this disappear. Evelyn read the sentence again. Then she thought of Samuel. Samuel Hart had driven city buses for 28 years. He had known every regular passenger, not always by name, but by rhythm. The woman who needed an extra moment to sit. The veteran who rode to the clinic every Thursday. The boy who stayed on 3 stops too long because home was harder than the bus. Samuel used to say, "Transportation isn't just about getting places, Evie. It's about whether the world believes you have somewhere worth going." At the time, Evelyn had thought he was being poetic. Now she understood he had been telling the truth. She rose slowly, one hand on the table, and walked to the back room where Samuel's old walnut desk still stood by the window. She had not opened the bottom drawer in nearly 4 years. Grief had strange locks. Some drawers remained closed not because they were forbidden, but because opening them meant admitting someone would never return to explain what was inside. Evelyn sat in his chair. "Sam," she whispered, "I need to know what you saw." The drawer stuck at first. She pulled harder, and it opened with a tired wooden groan. Inside was a gray cardboard box. On the lid, in Samuel's firm, slanted handwriting, were 3 words, "People who waited." Evelyn stopped breathing for a moment. Then she lifted the box onto the desk. It was heavier than she expected. Inside were index cards, bus schedules, folded letters, complaint forms, newspaper clippings, and handwritten notes bound with old rubber bands. Evelyn picked up the first card, Martha Jennings. Missed kidney appointment, route delayed 47 minutes, January 12. The next, Alonzo Price. Veteran VA transport canceled, waited outside library in snow, February 3. Another, Ruth Bell. No shelter at stop, fell on ice, broke wrist, March 8. Another, Denise and baby Malik, bus passed full, missed pediatric cardiology follow-up, April 19. Evelyn's hand began to shake. There were dozens, no, hundreds. Samuel had not collected complaints, he had collected witnesses. A folded letter slipped from between 2 stacks. Evelyn opened it carefully. "Evie, if you are reading this, maybe I never got around to doing what I kept saying I would do. I thought I would organize these names. Bring them to someone with a title. Make them look at what happens when people are left waiting. Every missed ride has a report somewhere. Every late bus has a reason. Every canceled appointment has paperwork. But the person who waited usually disappears. I could not fix it all, but I could refuse to forget. If these names ever matter, use them." Sam Evelyn pressed the letter to her chest. For 4 years, she had thought Samuel's unfinished papers were only the remains of an old working life. But this was not clutter. It was testimony. The phone rang. Marcus. She answered with the letter still in her hand. "Mrs. Hart," he said. "Evelyn," she corrected softly. "Evelyn, I wanted to make sure you got home." "I did. Good." His voice sounded tired, too tired. "Marcus," she said, looking at the box, "I found something of my husband's." "What kind of something?" "A box of names." People who missed medical care because rides failed them. Bus delays. Canceled vans, no shelters. Bad weather, people like me. Marcus was silent. Then he said, "My mother missed 2 oncology appointments because transportation failed." Evelyn closed her eyes. Diane Reed, his mother, the rain had not started this story. It had only revealed it. "Can you come tomorrow?" Evelyn asked. "I want to show you. I should look for work. I know. My app is still locked. I know that too." A long pause. Then Marcus said, "I'll come. Bring a notebook. I have one." After they hung up, Evelyn sat alone at Samuel's desk while afternoon faded into evening. The chemo nausea began to rise and her body begged for rest, but her heart was awake in a way it had not been since Samuel died. She began reading the names aloud, one by one, not loudly, not dramatically, reverently, as if calling people back from the places where policy had buried them. By nightfall, the story of one cancer patient in the rain had become something larger, older and harder to ignore. Marcus Reed did not sleep much that night. He lay on the couch in his small apartment while Caleb slept under a dinosaur blanket across the room. The radiator clicked in the corner. Rain tapped the window softly now, almost politely, as if the storm had no memory of what it had done. But Marcus remembered. He remembered Evelyn under the broken awning, the flooded curb. Her trembling question, "Are you going to cancel?" He remembered turning off the meter, helping her into the car, and driving toward Cleveland Hope while the app began counting his mercy as a violation. At 2:11 a.m., he sat up. On the kitchen table lay Samuel Hart's copied records, Evelyn's notes, and his own black notebook. Beside them was the email from Uber, final review scheduled. Driver statement required within 24 hours. Marcus opened his laptop. The empty reply box glowed in the dark. He knew what a safe statement sounded like. "I regret the misunderstanding. I understand platform policies. It will not happen again." Those words might restore his account. They might let him work again. Caleb needed groceries. Rent was due soon. Angela was right. A child could not breathe on principles. Still, Marcus could not make his hands type a lie. He looked at Caleb, sleeping with one hand near his chest. His son's breathing was steady tonight. No wheeze, no sharp pause, no panic. Marcus whispered, "I'm trying, buddy." Then he began to write. "To the review team, my name is Marcus Reed. On October 18th, I accepted a ride from Evelyn Hart, a 72-year-old cancer patient traveling to chemotherapy at Cleveland Hope Cancer Center. When I arrived, Mrs. Hart was standing outside in heavy rain. She was soaked, weak, and carrying a medical bag. Multiple drivers had already canceled. She was at risk of missing treatment. I ended the trip in the app after I saw that the situation required help the app did not account for. I helped her safely into my vehicle and drove her directly to the cancer center. I accepted no cash. I did not solicit an off-platform ride. I acted to protect a medically vulnerable passenger. If this is considered a violation, the policy should explain what a driver is expected to do when following the app means leaving a sick elderly woman in unsafe conditions. I understand liability. I understand rules. I also understand that rules without human judgment can harm people. Respectfully, Marcus Reed. He stared at the screen for a long time. Then he added one final line. "I am willing to provide documentation from Mrs. Hart and the cancer center." His finger hovered over send, then he clicked. The message vanished. For a moment, the apartment felt larger than before. At 7:30 that morning, Marcus arrived at Evelyn's house with Caleb beside him. Evelyn sat at the kitchen table wrapped in Samuel's cardigan. Claire stood near the counter making coffee. Lily, Evelyn's 12-year-old granddaughter, had sticky notes spread before her like important evidence. Evelyn smiled at Caleb. "You must be Marcus's son." "Yes, Mom, and very polite. My dad makes me practice." "Good. Politeness is free, which makes it one of the few bargains left." Caleb grinned. The small laugh that moved through the kitchen did not erase the danger. It simply gave everyone enough air to keep going. Claire placed Samuel's records on the table. "We need verification," she said. "Names, dates, consent. If we bring this to anyone, it has to be clean." Evelyn nodded. "No exaggeration. No private medical details without permission." Marcus looked at her. "You've done this before?" "No. But Samuel taught me this much. When people with titles want to ignore you, bring paper." Before anyone could answer, Claire's phone rang. She looked at the screen. Naomi Ellis, the reporter. The room went still. Claire answered on speaker. Naomi's voice came through calm and careful. "I won't record anything without permission." Claire said there may be a transportation access issue connected to medical care. "Is that true?" Evelyn looked at Samuel's box. Marcus looked at Caleb, then at the copied records. "It's true," Marcus said. "And we have names." Naomi paused. "What kind of names?" Evelyn leaned toward the phone. "People who waited, people who missed treatment." People who disappeared into paperwork. By noon, Naomi Ellis was sitting in Evelyn's back room with a notebook on her lap and her recorder still turned off. She read Samuel's letter twice. She studied the piles: cancer care, dialysis, pediatric visits, veterans, weather exposure, canceled rides. At last, she looked up. "This is not just a human interest story," she said. "This is public health access." Marcus folded his hands. "What happens if it runs? People get angry," Naomi said, "and then?" "Sometimes nothing." The room absorbed the honesty. Naomi continued, "Change comes only when someone has something ready for the day after outrage." Claire picked up a pen. "Then we need something ready." Evelyn looked at Marcus. "A list is not enough," she said. "We need a bridge." That evening, Marcus received Uber's final decision. "Your driver account has been permanently deactivated." He read the sentence in Evelyn's driveway, the glow of her porch light spilling across his windshield. Permanent. The words settled like a stone in his chest. He walked to the door and showed Evelyn the email. She did not cry. She did not collapse. She reached for Samuel's box. "Then we begin tomorrow," she said. And for the first time, Marcus understood that losing the road he knew might force him to build another one. Evelyn Hart did not sleep after Marcus showed her the word permanent. A permanent deactivation, a permanent punishment for one morning of mercy. The word stayed in her house like a cold guest. It sat beside Samuel's gray box, leaned against the kitchen table, and followed her into the back room where all the names waited. Claire tried to make her rest. "Mom, you had chemo. You cannot carry this all night." Evelyn sat at Samuel's desk with her blue scarf tied loosely around her head. Her face was pale, but her eyes were awake. "My body is tired," she said. "My conscience is not." Claire closed her eyes. That sounded so much like her father that grief caught her by surprise. Then she walked to the kitchen, made 2 cups of tea, and returned with a legal pad. "All right," Claire said softly. "Tell me what tomorrow means." Evelyn looked at the 3 stacks on the desk: Samuel's records, Marcus' notes, and Naomi Ella's verification list. "We call people," Evelyn said. "Patients, clinics, churches, senior centers, anyone who knows what happens when transportation fails. We protect private medical information. Yes, we do not make Marcus the whole story." Evelyn nodded. "If this becomes only a story about one good driver, people will cry and move on. The real story is that he should never have had to choose between helping me and feeding his son." Claire wrote that sentence down. The next morning, Evelyn's kitchen became an office. Marcus arrived at 8:12 with Caleb beside him. His face looked sleepless but steadier than the night before. Caleb carried his red backpack and a drawing of a dragon driving through rain. Evelyn smiled at the boy. "Is that dragon a driver?" Caleb nodded. "He stops for people." Marcus looked away for a second. Claire placed a stack of consent forms on the table. "We verify everything," she said. "No exaggeration, no names without permission." Naomi Ellis joined by video call from her newsroom. "I can publish only what I can prove," she said. "I need patients willing to speak, documents, dates, and Marcus's emails from the company. If this runs, Uber will have a statement ready." Marcus gave a dry smile. "I'm sure they will." Naomi looked at him carefully. "They may offer reinstatement once the story grows. And if they do, then you decide whether survival and accountability can exist in the same sentence." That stayed with him. At 9:30, Claire reached Martha Jennings, an 81-year-old kidney patient from Samuel's box. When Claire mentioned Samuel Hart, the woman's voice softened. "The busman," Martha said. "He waited for me once in the snow. Everyone was annoyed, but he waited. Said the schedule could survive disappointment better than my old bones could survive ice." Evelyn pressed a hand to her mouth. Samuel was still alive in a stranger's memory. Martha agreed to speak with Naomi. At 10:40, Marcus called Leonard Brooks, a retired mechanic who had missed 2 radiation appointments when a medical van failed to arrive. Leonard listened quietly, then asked, "You Diane Reed's boy?" Marcus froze. "My mother? Red Hat. Always complained about hospital pudding. Sat beside me during infusion once." "She was proud of you." Marcus lowered his head. For years, his mother's missed treatments had been a private wound. Now another witness had opened a window inside it. Leonard agreed to speak. By noon, they had 4 voices. By 2, they had 7, a dialysis patient, a grandmother with a walker, a young mother whose child missed cardiology follow-up, a veteran left outside the VA clinic in sleet. Every call added weight, not drama, weight. At 3:17, Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered on speaker. "Mr. Reed, this is Daniel Porter from Uber's Regional Communications Office. We understand there may be media interest regarding your recent account deactivation." Marcus looked at Evelyn. Yesterday, no one at the company had been available. Today, a communications office had found his number. Daniel's voice was smooth. "We value rider and driver safety." We would like to better understand your concerns. Marcus leaned toward the phone. My concern is simple. A cancer patient was standing in a storm after multiple cancellations. I got her to chemotherapy. You deactivated me. We understand this is emotional. No, Marcus said. It is documented? Evelyn smiled faintly. Daniel paused. There may be a possibility of reconsideration if you provide a clarifying statement acknowledging the policy issue and confirming future compliance. Marcus understood the offer. Say the right words. Step back into the machine, work again. He thought of rent, Caleb's inhaler, Angela's warnings. Then he thought of Evelyn under the awning, Diane in her red hat, Samuel's box, and 186 names. What does future compliance mean, he asked. It means following all platform procedures. If this happens again, I can't speak to hypothetical situations. It is not hypothetical. It happened. The room went still. Marcus continued, write a policy for medically vulnerable riders in unsafe weather. Write one that tells drivers what to do when the app punishes the time it takes to help. Write one that does not make mercy look like fraud. No one breathed for a moment. Daniel said he would escalate the concern. The call ended. By evening, Naomi had enough for a story. She recorded formal interviews with Evelyn, Marcus, Martha, Leonard, and 2 others. Claire scanned Samuel's letter. Evelyn allowed Naomi to quote from it, but not to use every private word. Some things belong to the public. Some still belong to love. After Naomi signed off, Caleb held up his drawing. It showed a dragon driving a car through rain. In the back seat sat an old woman with a crown. Above them he had written, "Dragons stop for people." Evelyn laughed, then cried, then laughed again. Marcus took the drawing carefully. Can I keep this? Caleb nodded. For your new job. What new job? The one where you stop for people. No one spoke. Children sometimes named the future before adults were brave enough to look at it. At 6:03 the next morning, Naomi's story went live. By 8:15 it had been shared across Cleveland. By 9:30 local television called. By 10:05 Uber's national team emailed Marcus. By noon Evelyn's phone would not stop ringing. The story had escaped the house. Now it needed somewhere to go. And before sunset they would learn that public outrage is loud, but building something useful requires people willing to answer the phone after the noise fades. By noon, Evelyn Hart's little house sounded too small for the world. Her phone rang until Claire turned the ringer off. Marcus's phone kept buzzing beside it. Messages arrived faster than anyone could read them. A local television producer wanted an interview. A nonprofit director offered partnership opportunities, though Marcus could not tell whether that meant help or publicity. A stranger sent $50 and wrote, "For the driver who stopped." Another wrote, "Rules are rules." Then came a message from a woman in Toledo. "My mother missed radiation last year because her ride canceled. Thank you for saying what we couldn't." That one made the kitchen quiet. The story had moved through Cleveland like fire through dry paper. People were angry, people were touched, people called Marcus a hero. He hated the word. Not because helping Evelyn had been wrong. It had been the clearest right thing he had done in years. But hero sounded like a way to make one person exceptional so everyone else could remain excused. Heroes were easy to clap for. Systems were harder to repair. At the kitchen table, Caleb sat beside Lily, drawing dragons on scrap paper. Evelyn sat at the head of the table in her blue scarf and Samuel's cardigan, pale from treatment but still alert. Marcus's charcoal jacket hung on the chair behind her like a quiet witness. At 1:23 p.m., Marcus opened an email from Uber's national communications team. His face tightened. Claire noticed first. "What is it?" "They're offering to reinstate me." The room went still. Evelyn looked up. "Just like that?" "Not exactly." Marcus passed the phone to Claire. She read aloud. "After further review, we recognize that the situation involved extenuating circumstances. We are prepared to reinstate your driver access pending completion of a brief safety refresher and acknowledgement of platform guidelines regarding trip completion." Claire lowered the phone. "They want to solve the headline," she said, "not the harm." Evelyn's voice was soft. "Do they mention medically vulnerable riders?" "No." "Bad weather?" "No." "What drivers should do next time?" "No." Caleb looked up. "Dad, does that mean you can work again?" The question cut through every principal in the room. Marcus looked at his son. "Yes," he said. "Maybe." Caleb smiled with such relief that Marcus had to look away. Evelyn saw it. So did Claire. There was no dignity in pretending rent did not matter. No righteousness in ignoring a child's medicine. Survival was not betrayal. Marcus took the phone back. "I can't lie," he said. Evelyn nodded. "Then don't." "But you can be careful," Claire added. "Accept reinstatement if you need to. Attach your own written statement. Make a record." That sounded like Samuel. That sounded like Diane. That sounded like the narrow bridge between feeding a child and telling the truth. Marcus typed his response slowly. I acknowledged the platform guideline. I also maintain that my actions on October 18 were taken to protect a medically vulnerable rider in unsafe weather. I request an emergency protocol so drivers are not forced to choose between policy compliance and passenger safety. Evelyn read it. Samuel would underline the last sentence, so Marcus underlined it on the printed copy they placed in the case file. At 2:10 p.m., Naomi Ellis called. I received 26 emails since the story ran, she said. Patients, caregivers, drivers, same pattern. Evelyn closed her eyes. 26 more, not success, evidence. Naomi continued, a retired hospital administrator named Harold Whitcomb contacted me. He says 4 unused medical transport vans are sitting in a storage lot, older but operational. They may be transferable to a community partner. Claire grabbed a pen. What kind of partner? A legitimate program. Nonprofit structure. Insurance. Volunteer drivers. Dispatch plan. Marcus leaned back. That sounds impossible. Naomi's voice was steady. No, it sounds like day 2. Evelyn looked toward Samuel's photograph on the wall. Day 1 was outrage. Day 2 had to become work. She placed both hands on the table. We need a meeting. Claire frowned. This house can't hold one. Then New Mercy Baptist. Reverend Isaac Thomas answered on the second ring. When Claire explained, he did not hesitate. Basement is yours, he said. 6 o'clock. I'll make coffee. By evening, the church basement was full. Nurses came. Retired drivers came. Patients came with canes, walkers, oxygen tubes, appointment folders, and years of quiet anger. Harold Whitcomb arrived with a leather folder. Patricia Coleman came still wearing scrubs. Martha Jennings came with her purple coat and a cane. Reverend Thomas opened with one sentence. We are not here to admire kindness. We are here to organize it. Then Evelyn stood. Claire whispered, Mom. Evelyn steadied herself on the chair. My name is Evelyn Hart, she said. 2 days ago, I almost missed chemotherapy because rides canceled in the rain. Marcus Reed got me there. He was punished for it. That is why the news came. But that is not why we are here. She held up one of Samuel's cards. My husband kept names. People who missed appointments, people who waited in snow, people who fell. People who disappeared into paperwork. Her voice weakened, then returned. We need something that remains after the cameras leave. A phone number, drivers, vans, a schedule. A promise that no patient misses life-saving care simply because the road failed them. The room was silent. Then Martha Jennings rose slowly. I can't drive, she said. But I can answer phones. Leonard Brooks lifted a hand. I can fix vans if they're not too far gone. A nurse said, I can help screen urgent medical rides. A rideshare driver said, I'll volunteer 1 morning a week. Harold opened his folder. The vans are real, but you need an organization to receive them. Claire stood. Then we form one. Reverend Thomas turned to the whiteboard. What do we call it? Names came from every corner. Mercy Rides Rainbridge, Samuel's route. Marcus looked at Caleb's dragon drawing in his hand. Then he said, what about the second stop? Everyone turned. The first stop is where the system leaves someone waiting, Marcus said. The second stop is where we decide not to. Evelyn smiled. The second stop, she repeated. The name settled into the room as if it had been waiting there all along. By the end of the night, they had 14 volunteer drivers, 3 phone volunteers, a church office, 2 nurses, 1 mechanic, and a retired administrator trying to free 4 vans from storage. It was not enough, but it was no longer nothing. As Marcus drove Evelyn home, she rested her head against the seat. I'm very tired, she whispered. You should be, but it's a good tired, he smiled. My mother would have argued with you. I would have let her win once. No, you wouldn't. Evelyn laughed softly. Then she looked at him. When I'm gone, don't let this become only a memory. Marcus's hands tightened on the wheel. Don't talk like that. I have cancer, Marcus. Plain words are kinder than pretty lies. He could not answer. The second stop has to become real, she said. Not for me, for the next person in the rain. Marcus swallowed. It will. Promise me. He looked at the woman who had turned his punishment into purpose. I promise. Outside, Cleveland moved through the dark, full of people still waiting for rides, answers, and mercy with wheels. And the next morning, the second stop would receive its first call. The first call came at 7:06 the next morning. Not through a professional dispatch system. Not through an office with trained operators, digital maps, or a shiny new logo. It came through Reverend Thomas's old beige church phone, sitting on a folding table inside New Mercy Baptist's basement office. The room barely deserved the word office. It had 2 metal chairs, a donated computer that took forever to start, a whiteboard from the Sunday school room, and Caleb's dragon drawing taped crookedly near the door. Across the top of the whiteboard, Claire had written, the second stop. Under it, no patient left waiting when we can help. Marcus arrived before sunrise with coffee, printed forms, and the nervous silence of a man who had made a promise before knowing if he could keep it. Martha Jennings was already there in her purple coat, holding a pen like a judge's gavel. "I thought we said 8, Marcus said. Martha looked over her glasses. "Baby, I'm 81. Sleep and I broke up years ago." Leonard Brooks arrived 5 minutes later with a toolbox and biscuits. "Where are the vans?" he asked. Marcus hung his coat on a chair. "We don't have them yet," Leonard grunted. "Then I'll inspect the coffee." Claire came in with a binder thick enough to frighten weak men. She had made intake forms, consents forms, emergency contact sheets, volunteer driver guidelines, and a bold warning at the top of page 1. "We are not 911. We are a bridge when transportation fails." At 7:06, the phone rang. Everyone froze. Martha lifted the receiver. "New Mercy Baptist, the second stop desk. This is Martha." She listened. Her face changed, not panic. Recognition. "Slow down, sweetheart. Say the name again." Claire opened the binder. Marcus stepped closer. Martha wrote carefully. "Mrs. Anita Wallace, 79, radiation appointment at Cleveland Hope. 10:30, ride canceled twice. Lives on East 1 and 16th. Uses a walker. Daughter is at work and cannot leave. The first stop had happened. Now the second one was theirs." Marcus took the orange folder Claire had labeled first ride. "I'll go." Claire looked at him. "Marcus, you're reinstated. If you spend the morning driving for free, I know you need paid rides too. I know that too. Then be careful." He nodded. "That's the plan." Leonard picked up his toolbox. "I'm coming." Marcus frowned. "For what?" "To make sure your car doesn't embarrass us." At 7:18, Marcus and Leonard pulled away from the church. The morning was cold and clear. Yesterday's rain still shone on the streets. The city looked ordinary again, which almost felt insulting, as if it had not just watched a cancer patient stand under a broken awning, as if the world could dry itself and pretend nothing had happened. On East 116th, Mrs. Anita Wallace waited under the narrow roof of her apartment entrance. She was tiny, wrapped in a tan coat and green knitted hat, one hand gripping a walker, the other holding a purse against her chest. When Marcus got out, she looked at him with the cautious fear of someone expecting the next disappointment. "Mrs. Wallace? I'm Marcus. This is Leonard. Your daughter called." "No charge?" she asked. "No charge. I can pay a little." Leonard opened the back door. "Then pay us by getting well enough to complain about our driving later." Anita stared at him. Then she smiled. Getting her into the car took time, real time, human time. Marcus folded the walker. Leonard steadied her arm. Anita apologized for being slow, for needing help, for causing trouble. Marcus said, "Trouble is when people don't call. You called." She looked at him then, almost stunned that the world had answered. By 8:31, they reached Cleveland Hope. Patricia Coleman was waiting near the entrance. Claire had called ahead. When Patricia saw Marcus helping Anita from the car, her hand went briefly to her chest. "You're early," Patricia said. Anita held her purse tightly. "I didn't want to miss it." "You won't." Marcus stood outside the automatic doors. The last time he had entered that lobby, he was soaked, shivering, and unaware that mercy would cost him his job. Now he watched another patient cross safely into care. It was only one ride. It felt like the first candle in a dark room. By noon, the second stop had received 9 calls. They could not answer all of them. One patient needed wheelchair-accessible transport. One lived too far outside the county. One call was a true emergency and had to be sent to 911. Another needed recurring dialysis 3 times a week. Each not yet hurt. Claire wrote everyone down. "Not yet is data," she said. "If we cannot help, we record why. That is how we prove what we need." Evelyn arrived at the church at 1:15 against everyone's advice. Claire nearly lost her patience. "Mom, you were supposed to rest. I rested in the car. You sat in the car with my eyes closed. That is elderly rest." Marcus gave Evelyn his chair. She looked at the whiteboard. Completed rides. 1. Anita Wallace. Radiation arrived 8:31 a.m. Evelyn touched the board with 2 fingers. "How was she?" Marcus answered softly. "Scared." "And after?" "Less scared." Evelyn nodded. "That counts." At 2:40, Harold Whitcomb arrived with news about the vans. "They can be released," he said. The room erupted. He raised a hand. "If the second stop becomes an official nonprofit or partners with one, you need insurance, driver screening, maintenance inspection, and proof of community health use." Claire was already writing. "How long?" "The surplus board meets in 3 weeks." Evelyn's eyes sharpened. "Too long." Harold looked down. "In hospital time, it's fast. In cancer time, it is not." No one argued. Reverend Thomas, who had been refilling coffee, turned around. "New Mercy can sponsor temporarily." Claire blinked. "That is a legal responsibility." "I know what responsibility is." By 4, the second stop had 1 completed ride, 4 pending requests, a temporary sponsor, and a list of obstacles long enough to frighten anyone who needed the work to feel easy. At 6:03, the church phone rang again. Martha had gone home, so Marcus answered. New Mercy Baptist, the second stop. This is Marcus. A man's voice spoke strained and ashamed. My name is Peter Lang. My wife has dialysis at 6 tomorrow morning. Our car won't start. The van service needs 48 hours. I don't know who else to call. Marcus reached for the orange folder, no longer first ride. Second. What's your address, Mr. Lang? Evelyn watched him write. Outside, evening settled over Cleveland. Somewhere someone was waiting and wondering whether help would come. Inside the small church office, Marcus wrote down the address, appointment time, emergency contact, and dialysis center. Then he looked at Evelyn. The second ride, he said. She nodded. For the first time since her diagnosis, Evelyn felt not only fear of the future, but a fierce desire to reach it. Tomorrow morning, before sunrise, the second stop would have to prove it was more than a beautiful idea. It would have to show up at 4:42 the next morning. Cleveland was still dark. Marcus Reed sat behind the wheel of his Camry outside New Mercy Baptist Church, watching his breath fog the windshield. On the passenger seat lay the orange folder, thicker now with forms, phone numbers, emergency contacts, and Claire's careful handwriting. Peter Lang, wife, Rosa Lang, dialysis appointment, 6 a.m. Pickup. 5:10 a.m. The first ride had mattered. The second ride would prove whether the second stop was a promise or only a beautiful name. Leonard Brooks knocked on the passenger window and climbed in with a paper cup of coffee. You look terrible, Leonard said. Good morning to you, too. I brought coffee. That's my apology. Marcus took it. Accepted. They reached the Lang's apartment at 5:08. Peter Lang was already waiting outside in a brown coat over pajama pants, panic sitting openly on his face. Beside him, Rosa sat in a wheelchair beneath 2 blankets, pale but alert. I'm sorry, Peter said before Marcus reached the curb. I know it's early. The van service said 48 hours. I called everyone. Marcus lifted a hand gently. Mr. Lang, you don't have to spend your strength apologizing. Peter stopped. His mouth trembled once. Getting Rosa into the car took time, human time. Leonard folded the wheelchair. Marcus steadied Rosa's hand and explained every movement before making it. Rosa apologized each time her legs failed to cooperate. Mrs. Lang, Marcus said softly, we built the morning around you. You are not delaying it. She looked at him as if no one had ever arranged time in her favor before. They reached the dialysis center at 5:49, 11 minutes early. Peter stood outside the entrance with tears in his eyes. She made it, he whispered. Marcus nodded. She made it. No camera recorded it. No one applauded. The world did not stop to notice, but inside Marcus something settled. The second stop had shown up twice. That afternoon, Evelyn arrived at the church basement wrapped in Samuel's cardigan and Marcus' charcoal jacket layered over it. Claire followed behind her with the face of a daughter trying very hard not to scold her mother in public. Tell Marcus what the doctor said, Claire demanded. Evelyn sighed. The doctor said I should avoid unnecessary exertion, Claire stared. And I decided this is necessary. Marcus pulled out a chair. You can be necessary sitting down. Evelyn looked at him. That was almost wise, almost as progress. On the whiteboard, Claire had written, completed rides. 2 pending rides this week, 17 volunteer drivers, 18 patients waiting, 29. Evelyn touched the number 29. It hurt more than the completed rides comforted her, Claire noticed. Not yet is data, Mom. Evelyn nodded, then write them down. So they did. Over the next weeks, the second stop grew the way real things grow, awkwardly, imperfectly, with tired people and bad coffee and forms no one could ever find when needed. The church office became a dispatch room. Martha answered phones on Tuesdays. Leonard inspected volunteer cars with deep suspicion. Claire built schedules, consent forms, and driver rules. Reverend Thomas found donated desks. Patricia helped identify urgent medical rides. Marcus drove early mornings for the second stop and late evenings for Uber, holding survival in one hand and purpose in the other. Some calls they answered, some they could not. Those were the hardest. Wheelchair van needed, no vehicle yet. Out of county, no driver, same-day emergency. Call 911, recurring treatment, wait list. Each unmet need went on to Evelyn's new list, people still waiting. This list was not hidden in Samuel's desk. It stayed open on the dispatch table. In December, the hospital surplus board approved 2 medical vans for the second stop. Not 4, 2. Harold Whitcomb called it a victory. Leonard called it half a victory with bad tires. Both were right. The morning the vans arrived, Evelyn insisted on coming. Cold air reddened her cheeks. Her body was weaker now, but her eyes were alive. On the side of the first white van, blue letters read, "The second stop, no patient left waiting when we can help." Evelyn placed one hand against the door. Then she gave Marcus Samuel's old bus driver cap. He shook his head. "I can't take that." "You're not taking it," she said. "You're carrying it." He accepted the cap with both hands. By spring, the second stop had completed 612 rides. The number appeared on the church whiteboard, then in Naomi Ellis's follow-up report, then at a city council hearing where Claire spoke with shaking hands and Marcus spoke with a steady voice. Evelyn could not attend. Her doctor advised against it. Instead, she recorded a statement from her living room. "My name is Evelyn Hart," she said, wearing her blue scarf and Samuel's cardigan. "I am alive today not only because medicine existed, but because someone helped me reach it. A treatment you cannot reach is a treatment you do not have. Please do not wait until another person is standing in the rain." The city approved a pilot fund for medical transportation partnerships. Cleveland Hope added transportation screening to oncology intake. Uber announced a medical vulnerability guidance review, which Marcus said sounded like 5 words trying very hard not to say 2. We failed. Still, movement was movement, imperfect, late, real. Evelyn saw the first city-funded second-stop van begin service on a Tuesday morning in April. Caleb rode beside Marcus for one ceremonial trip around the block. Lily taped a sign in the window, "Grandma Evelyn's Bridge." Evelyn laughed, then cried, then ordered everyone to take a picture. 2 weeks later, she entered hospice at home. Her last days were not like movies. There was pain, confusion, medicine, silence, and Claire crying in the bathroom with the water running. Marcus fixed the porch railing because grief needed somewhere to put his hands. Caleb left dragon drawings beside her bed. Lily read to her after school. On Evelyn's final clear afternoon, spring air came through the open window. "Is the van running today?" she asked. Marcus sat beside her. "Yes. How many rides?" 7. She closed her eyes. "Good." After a while, she whispered, "Do not stop at being kind, Marcus." He leaned closer. "Build what kindness needs." Those were the last words she gave him. Evelyn Hart passed before dawn, with Claire holding one hand and Lily holding the other. Marcus stood in the doorway, not family by blood, but claimed by the road her courage had built. At her memorial, the church was full. Patients came, drivers came, nurses came, people who had never met Evelyn but had ridden in a second-stop van came. Martha placed a peppermint candy near her photograph. Leonard placed a small wrench beside it and blamed his wet eyes on allergies. Caleb placed the dragon drawing. Lily placed Samuel's bus cap. Marcus placed the charcoal jacket. Then he stood before the room. "I used to think stopping was the whole thing," he said. "You see someone in trouble, you stop. But Evelyn taught me stopping is only the beginning. After you help one person across, you ask why the bridge was missing." His voice shook, but he did not hide it. "So we'll keep driving." 1 year after the rain, a plaque was mounted in the dispatch room. The second stop founded in honor of Evelyn Hart, Samuel Hart, Diane Reed, and all who waited. Kindness is the first stop. Justice is the road we build after. By then, the second stop had completed 2,318 rides. Not every call could be answered. Not every gap was closed. But fewer people stood alone in storms. Every Wednesday morning, Marcus arrived early, checked the schedule, touched the old jacket hanging by the door, and picked up the phone. "The second stop," he would say. "This is Marcus. Where do you need to go?" Somewhere in the city, someone waiting would hear a human voice answer. The bridge was not perfect, it was not finished, but it stood. And whenever rain struck the dispatch room windows, Marcus thought of Evelyn beneath the broken awning, asking through exhaustion and disappointment, "Are you going to cancel?" He always answered her in his heart. "No, Evelyn, not this time, not anymore." The road had not ended when one driver turned off his app. It had begun the moment he refused to drive past.